advice on it. Because I think that we have to focus on management actually, research, particularly we have FOCAC between China and all three countries in Africa that have participation with China. So for the last year, we worked on a project that we call the Sign of Green Finance Alliance. This is where we are tracking the flow of green finance between China and Africa. And we are doing two country case. We're doing Ghana and Ethiopia. So earlier in Ghana, we've done what we call stakeholder engagements, where we brought together 45 critical stakeholders in the climate green finance space in Ghana to engage on what better ways to ensure that Ghana can take advantage of the numerous opportunities that exist between Ghana and China. We did the same in Addis Ababa. And so today, what we are hosting is what we call the first Ghana-China Climate Summit. This is an elevation of the stakeholder engagement that we had. And so before today, we've had engagement on both governments, that is the government of Ghana and of that of People's Republic of China. And both governments have expressed keen interest and enthusiasm and commitment in working together on sustainable development that aligns with their national and local priorities. Obviously, as we know, Ghana, just like all countries in Africa, engages with China through what we call the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which is held every 3 years. And last year was held in Beijing. And there came an action plan. And that action plan, there were numerous projects that were listed that focused on sustainable development. In fact, one of them is that China seeks to do 30 plus projects in renewable energy across Africa in the next 3 years. So Ghana too is actually on the verge of trying to put climate sustainability at the forefront of our development. So we have, for the first time, Office of the Minister of State for Climate Change and Sustainability. We have the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition. These are all actions taken by the government of Ghana to show that indeed we are at the right time committed to ensuring that we have sustainable development. So for us, it's about elevating what we've discussed, what Ghana and China have already discussed in the FOCAC summit, to how to localize it. And that's why we've already discussed, initiated a process where in the few weeks' time, we're going to witness the signing of MOU between government of Ghana and that of China in regard to cooperation on green development. Obviously, we cannot talk about fighting the threats, whether through mitigation or adaptation of climate change, without talking about the financing. Because obviously, we talk about building resilient infrastructure, building sea defense walls because of the flooding that we are witnessing, because now the water waves are now extreme to the level that we cannot witness. We're talking about resilient agriculture models because now climate change is threatening our food security. So all of this, the underlying thing that you can see that we need financing, but we need a different kind of financing. That's what we call the green finance. Finance that looks at the green aspect of projects. Right? So that's why even in our stakeholder engagement, we focus so much on the financial institutions. We wanted to make sure that they're in their room to understand that the time has changed, that we need new process, new phases of financing that tackles green development. So basically, that's what we're trying to do. And we understand the importance of green finance. And that's that there must be more conversation, whether from the government side to enact more regulations for the financial institution to be very innovative and coming up with products and services that serves the green economy. So that's what we are pushing for, obviously. Yeah, obviously, I mean, we cannot talk about climate change and talk about the environment because the environment, social governance, ESG is all part of the climate conversation. So as we know in Ghana, I mean, the involvement of Chinese nationals especially, and Galamsey is very visible for everybody to see. And that has been a core part of what government to government are engaged on how to stop this very menace that is destroying our water body, destroying our forests, destroying our reserves. So it's a very critical thing that we cannot overlook. So obviously, as we see in almost every platform that talks about climate change in Ghana, there's the conversation about Galamsey. So that is why people have been calling on the government of the day that at the end of the day, it's our country, it's our environment, it's our rules that engages as everyone that has to do anything to do with the environment. So obviously we can have and we should have the power and the will to take a decisive decision. As we speak today, there's no way as a Ghanaian national you can go to China and do illegal mining, right? But if a Chinese national comes here and do illegal mining, the question is, how does that work? Let's reverse it. So even in so many aspects, we call the borrower responsibility when it comes to even some of the issue about debt and all. There's something we call borrower responsibility, right? Which is the person that is taking on the issue. What has been the response of that person? Not the person that is giving. Okay, so we can advocate, we can talk about Chinese nationals being here, but we need to look within.
We know the story. We know how these illegal money are being facilitated. We know exactly. So we have to be truthful to ourselves. Yes, we have every right to speak to the Chinese government at the government to government level that they must also run some advocacy in their country, warning their nationals not to be involved in any overseas illegal mining, irrespective of the country, whether Ghana, Nigeria, whatever. That is something that we can advocate for in terms of our partnership with China, that we can speak to them that you need to do more in your home country to ensure your people don't come here to come and engage. But when they are here, it is not the responsibility of the Chinese government. It is the responsibility of the government of Ghana. That's how it works. Once they enter into our territory, they are in Ghana. The rules of engagement is the rules of Ghana, not the rules of China. You understand the point? So if we are not able to clamp down decisively on people that are involved in it, irrespective of the nationality, whether they are Ghanaians or foreigners, then who are we to blame at the end of the day? So for me, that is where we need to. In fact, we've all seen in recent times the devastating, even where we're losing national figures because of illegal mining. That is not acceptable. So for us, while we can advocate that Chinese government needs to speak to the people, advocate home to ensure that nationals who travels abroad do not involve in illegal mining, we have for me, the rest of the core issue rests with us. That indeed, as a government, as a country, we need to be very decisive on how to deal with illegal miners, irrespective of nationality. And that is the way forward.
Center for Policy and Advisory, who guides policy on mutual growth. Mr. Frimpong Paul is the Executive Director of ACCPA. Let's welcome him for him to give us the opening remarks.
Climate change is now threats. We see in recent times the flooding that we're experiencing, the intense heat that we see around us. Obviously, that speaks to a common trend that indeed we are not isolated from the threats that climate change brings to our lives and to the sustainability of our very existence. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And on behalf of the Africa China Center for Policy and Advisory, our partner, the Africa Climate Foundation, I welcome all of you to this historic first Ghana in a very more positive round of ideas that will shape what we've been engaging in for decades now. That is the engagement of the relation between Ghana and China. Today, we just want to set the tone. This platform to become a game changer in moving from rhetoric to action. If you are following the engagement between Africa and China in recent years, as you can see or you may know, there's a platform called the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC. This platform was established in 2000, that every 3 years brings together leaders from across Africa to meet with Chinese counterparts to discuss things of mutual interest on how to develop our two regions. And as it were, obviously, every 3 years, there are issues that are brought to the fore for the two parties to discuss. And since 2012, the issue about climate, environment, and sustainability has been a core part of the ideas that the two parties almost always discuss. And of course, Ghana, as we stand today, we are very much also aware, and also as we can track and see in the new administration, they've actually set up what we call the Office of the Minister of State for Climate Change and Sustainability. Even our own energy ministry is now Ministry of Energy and Green Transition. And that speaks to the awareness of our government, Ghana, in terms of how we think putting the climate agenda on the forefront will be something good for our future. And so going back to what has happened between Ghana and China, and of course Africa and China in a broader sense, during the FOCAC, the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit that was held in Beijing last year, the core pillars that underpin what the two regions seek to do in the next 3 years bordered around what we call the green development. Now, for us at ACCPA, we are just here to bridge, serve as a bridge between what governments in Africa are doing with China. For China is a constant with all 53 countries in Africa that have diplomatic relations with China. Now, the ACCPA is a full-fledged think tank that focuses on knowledge production, researching, and of course, creating a platform like this to ensure that we continue the conversation and engagement between our respective governments and China. Now, this summit, Ghana-China Climate Summit, forms part of a broader project that we're doing this year called the Sino-Africa Green Finance Alliance. And here, what we're trying to do is to track the flow of green finance from China to Africa. We do 2 country cases, Ghana and Ethiopia. And earlier, we've done so much work already in Ghana and Ethiopia. We did some workshop in Ghana, Accra. We did the same in Addis Ababa in July. And today, it's more on a broader side where we're bringing all of you to be a part of what we're doing to seek to sort of understand what really are the realities on the ground when it comes to national priorities, local agenda, and of course, in connection with international partners, in this case, China. Because the idea is that we cannot do it on our own. There are multiple platforms, there are multiple opportunities out there through the partnerships with China, with the European Union, with the US, with India, with the UAE, and everyone. But our focus, our aim as a think tank, is looking, zeroing in on what we're doing with China. And that is why we find it very prudent that today we can put together this very important summit to ensure that we can move the conversation from rhetoric to action. So I'm hoping that all of us here, I believe we have multiple institutions here representing from the banks, from civil society organizations, from the academia, and a lot of universities in due time will give acknowledgements. But before I end, I want to say a big thank you to our distinguished guests. First, of course, our His Excellency Ambassador Tondifa, the Chinese ambassador to Ghana. Say welcome and thank you very much for being here. As well as our distinguished speakers, which our moderator will introduce in due time. On behalf of the ACCP and our partner, the Africa Climate Foundation, I say welcome to today's summit, and I hope that we'll have a very fruitful engagement. All the questions that we have, hopefully our speakers will get to address them, and we'll ensure that today's gathering will not just be a gathering, and let's say the cat out of the box. We already have an engagement with the People's Republic of Ghana, across Ghana, where we have an arrangement for more action to follow from this summit, and we'll hear from our distinguished speakers from the Republic of Ghana, who will give us even an insight into what exactly we intend to do after the summit. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome you to the Ghana-China Climate Summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Director for ACCPA, Mr. Paul Frimpong. Now, when we're speaking, you did mention of the fact that we're here today to have a conversation that transcends beyond the four corners of this room. As I mentioned earlier, the Ghana-China Climate Summit is indeed aligned with the ambitious commitment of FOCAC 2024 Beijing Action Plan, and we believe that our actions and our conversations today will catalyze practical partnerships that invest sustainability into every single sector, and again, mobilize resources to build resilience and drive equitable growth for generations to come, and even for ourselves. And as he mentioned, this will not just be a dialogue. It's a platform for shaping practical partnerships that will impact generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to hear keynote addresses. The first keynote address is from the Honorable Seydou Isifu, Ghana's Minister of State for Climate Change and Sustainability. To do the official introduction of our first keynote speaker, please, let's welcome Sylvia Sikari, a senior fellow at the ACCP. A round of applause for her, please.
Thank you very much and welcome for this morning. I have the privilege to introduce our speaker, our first keynote speaker, Honorable Seydou Isifu. So Honorable Seydou Isifu is a Ghanaian politician and former member of Parliament the Namlebu-Gambaga constituency in the northeast region of Ghana's 8th Parliament. He is widely recognized for his dedication to community development, particularly in education infrastructure, making a lasting impact on his constituency and surrounding communities. He has a background in economics and management. Honorable Seyi Isifu has contributed extensively to experimental initiatives that provide sustainable business solutions to solve unemployment and enhance Ghana's socio-economic development through youth empowerment and employment. As Ghana's first Minister of State for Climate Change and Sustainability, he was appointed by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama in 2025. Honorable Seyi is a committed individual, and his commitment lies towards economic development through youth employment and youth empowerment. He is also committed to advancing climate action, building resilience, and enhancing adaptation efforts, both locally and internationally. With a round of applause, I want us to welcome. Sorry, I'm just telling you that Honorable Seyi is not with us at the moment, so with a round of applause, let's pay attention to him.
To the African China Center for Policy and Advocacy for convening this timely dialogue, and to our colleagues from the government of China, developing partners, and civil society for joining us in this important endeavor. This summit comes as a decisive moment for Ghana, Africa, and indeed the world. With less than 5 years to 2030, the urgency to accelerate action under the Paris Agreement has never been greater. Climate change is no longer a distant challenge. It is a daily reality. It is reshaping livelihoods, disrupting ecosystems, and placing immense strain on our water, food, and energy systems. Your Excellencies, Ghana has taken a historic and bold step by establishing the office of the Minister of State for Climate Change and Sustainability. The highest political decision by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to address the climate change head-on. The institutional innovation is a clear signal that climate action is at the very heart of our national governance, policy direction, and development agenda. As a minister, I have articulated a vision that seeks to operationalize this mandate in concrete and transformative ways. The establishment of a climate change and sustainability hub, a center of excellence for research, policy, and innovation, serving as a net center for coordination, partnership, and climate finance. The creation of climate change and sustainability units in every ministry, department, agencies, and district assemblies, mainstreaming climate action into governance at all levels, from health and education to energy, trade, and infrastructure. This vision ensures that climate action is not an abstract idea, but a policy reality that reaches every corner of our society. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Ghana-China Climate Summit is a powerful opportunity to deepen our bilateral cooperation. Ghana and China share common aspirations to expand renewable energy, build sustainable infrastructure, scale green industries, and access climate finance that drives a just and inclusive transition. I wish to make a bold call today to propose the establishment of a Ghana-China Climate Business Summit. Such a platform will go beyond policy dialogue and allow us to showcase the best of Ghanaian and Chinese innovation in addressing climate change. It will bring together investors, entrepreneurs, financiers, and innovators to explore opportunities in renewable energy, circular economy, green agriculture, digital sustainability, and climate resilient infrastructure. Through such a summit, Ghana can serve as a gateway for China's broader green engagement with Africa, while also presenting Ghana's emerging innovations, youth-led enterprises, and investment opportunities to the Chinese partners. Your Excellencies, as we reflect today, let us recognize that climate diplomacy is not just about declarations and signatures. It must be about tangible impacts to the farmer in Bongo, the fisherman in Aga, and the trader in Accra. These citizens must feel the results of our cooperation. This is why I strongly support the idea of exploring a Ghana-China Climate Cooperation MOU to institutionalize our collaborations, align our efforts with the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation commitments, and signals to the world that Ghana and China are ready to lead together in building climate resilience. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this summit is not just about Ghana and China. It is about creating a model of South-South cooperation that is practical, inclusive, and transformative. Ghana stands ready to work with China and all partners to ensure that our shared journey is one of resilience, prosperity, and sustainability. Together, let us build a future where our infrastructure is built to last, our economies are green and inclusive, and our people are empowered to drive in harmony with nature. Thank you, and may our deliberations today inspire both partnership and lasting.
First, on behalf of Chinese Embassy in Ghana, I would like to sincerely appreciate African China Center for Policy and Advisory and African Climate Foundation for hosting this summit. My appreciation also goes to His Excellency Honorable Minister of State, Seibu. His speech showcases valuable support from President Mahama's government to developing China-Ghana relations, as well as promoting green transition. Ladies and gentlemen, the earth is the only home we have. Human beings share a common future in the face of challenges presented by global climate change. And no country can make itself immune from the impact. As the largest developing country in the world, China has adopted a number of policies, measures, and actions to tackle climate change and take part in global climate governance. Despite the difficulties this creates for its own economic and social development, these efforts have achieved positive results. First, China has implemented a new development philosophy. President Xi Jinping has said, clean waters and green mountains are invaluable assets. China pursues a philosophy that development must be innovative, coordinated, green, open, shared, and people-centered. Actually, ecology civilization construction has been listed as one of the 5 pillars in China's national plan. We believe that eco-environmental protection leads to greater productivity, following the current technological revolution and industrial trends. China has transformed and upgraded its economic and industrial structure to achieve green development. A better eco-environment is boosting China's sustainable economic and social development. Secondly, China is striving for carbon neutrality. During the United Nations General Assembly in the year 2020, China announced to beat carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and to achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. Being one of China's major strategies, it is a solemn commitment towards building a global community with a shared future. China has incorporated this decision into its overall economic and social development, continue to honor and implement the Paris Agreement, focusing on green and low carbon development of the energy sector, and accelerating the formation of industrial structures, production modes, ways of work and life to conserve resources and protect the environment. Further, China promotes the synergy of reduction of pollution as well as carbon emissions. Carbon dioxide and other ordinary pollutants often come from the same sources, mainly from the burning of fossil fuels. Controlling with the fossil fuels and consequently reducing carbon emissions will boost high-quality development by pressing for the green transition of the economy. It will be conducive to mitigating climate change and its damage. It will also help conserve biodiversity and improve ecosystems. China's efforts to reduce pollution and carbon emissions are planned and carried out in tandem, balancing environmental and climate economic gains. Ladies and gentlemen, China is the world's largest investor in clean energy and actively is committed to technological innovation, cementing its role as a global leader in renewable energy has become more prominent. Since 2010, China's increasing production scale has reduced the prices of clean energy technologies by 60 to 90%. In the year 2023, over half of the world's newly added installed capacity of renewable energy, 510 million kilowatts, was contributed by China. China's installed capacity of renewable energy surpassed that of thermal power for the first time in history. In 2024, over 90% of newly commissioned global wind and solar projects have lower generation costs than the cheapest fossil fuel alternatives. Chinese companies submitted approximately 75% of the global clean energy patent applications, up from just 5% in the year 2000. China's wind and solar projects are being exported to over 200 countries and regions. Our many developing countries gain access to clean, renewable, and affordable energy. In the 2024, China's wind and solar power generation capacity increased by 25% year-on-year, reaching 84% of the growth in electricity demand. The scale of wind and solar power and construction in China was twice the total of the rest of the world. Relevant installed capacity exceeded 1.2 billion kilowatts, achieving the 2030 target by 6 years ahead of schedule. The world's top 4 wind power equipment manufacturers are all Chinese companies. China's energy consumption per unit of GDP dropped by 11.6% from the year 2020 level, equivalent to reducing carbon dioxide emission by 1 billion tons. China is one of the countries with the fastest decrease in energy intensity. In July 2024, the monthly domestic retail sales new energy passenger vehicles in China surpassed those of traditional fuel-powered vehicles for the first time, making EVs the new mainstream in Chinese market. China has been an active participant in global efforts on emission reduction and continue to pursue South-South cooperation on climate response. China has announced in the year 2021 a decision to stop building new coal-fired power projects overseas, demonstrating its concrete actions in response to climate change. And China has established two important funds, which is Global Development and South-South Cooperation Fund, South-South Cooperation Fund for Climate Change. As of November 2024, China has signed 53 memorandums of understanding on climate change in South-South cooperation with 42 developing countries and carried out nearly 100 mitigation and adaptation projects. These efforts have helped African countries, the least developed countries, smaller countries, and other developing countries enhance climate resilience. Over the past 12 months, solar panel imports from China across Africa increased by 60%, with 20 African countries setting record high import volumes during this period. Chinese EV companies have maintained robust growth. According to media estimates, China accounted for 76% of the global EV market in October 2024. Experts predicted that by the year 2035, China's clean energy output value may be doubled, generating 15 trillion yuan of economic benefits. Just recently, when Xi Jinping put forward the global governance initiative highlighting the growing prominence of issues such as climate change, when Xi called on developed countries to fulfill their responsibilities by providing more resources and public goods, also urged developing countries to strengthen unity and self-reliance while making contributions within their capabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, the friendship between China and Africa has stood the test of time and become ever stronger, while practical cooperation has yet reached fruits. In September 2024, the FOCAC summit was held in Beijing, when Xi Jinping gave a keynote speech in which he emphasized that China and Africa together account 1/3 of the world's population. Without the modernization of China and Africa, there will be no modernization of the world. In the next 3 years, China is willing to carry out the 10 partnership actions, including the Green Development Partnership Action for China and Africa to jointly promote modernization with Africa. China promises to implement 30 clean energy projects in Africa, build meteorological early warning business platform, and carry out cooperation in disaster prevention, mitigation, and relief, as well as biodiversity protection. China will establish China-Africa Forum of Peaceful Users of Nuclear Technology, jointly build 30 laboratories, and carry out cooperation in satellite remote sensing, lunar space exploration to help Africa achieve green development. China-Ghana parallel cooperation are also steadily reinforced. China limits Ghana's large-scale economy with resource foreign investments. Last year, our bilateral trade volume reached an unprecedented high of $11.8 billion, making a year-on-year growth of 7.1%. Hundreds of Chinese enterprises have invested in sectors such as infrastructure, manufacturing, mining, aviation, green energy, and petroleum refining, creating successful employment opportunities for local people, while advancing Ghana's industrialization and safeguarding its energy security. Shenzhen Energy Group's Sunong Asokli power plants, the head of the company is here, significantly generated 2.6 billion kilowatts of electricity in the year 2024, significantly alleviating Ghana's industrial and residential electricity shortages. Years ago, the Buwe hydropower station, another milestone of China-Ghana cooperation on climate change, the second largest in Ghana, can generate 1 billion kilowatts of electricity yearly, clean energy electricity. So I'm sure, and I'm confident, that under strong leadership of President Xi Jinping and President John Mahama, China and Ghana will continuously to enrich the strategic partnership and jointly open a new chapter of friendly cooperation in the new era. And I thank you for your attention.
He suggested at least a Ghana-China climate business summit where we will bring together all the innovators, all the business leaders, all the financiers to be able to move us from practice to action. So we are going to begin the panel discussion with you, Your Excellency, the 2024 Beijing FOCAC Summit and the 2025 Coordinators Meeting in Ghana, Your Excellency, highlighted ambitious commitments from the Beijing Action Plan to significant financial pledges and a strong focus on green development. Impact, but then we move quickly into the panel discussion, Your Excellency. Like I mentioned, the Beijing FOCAC Summit highlights the strong commitment of China to green development. And so, we are asking Your Excellency, could you share with us how China sees climate finance as a central pillar to this partnership?
Yes, as I said in my speech, that during the FOCAC last year in Beijing, we have come out with another 10 partnership actions. The Green Development Partnership is one of the key areas. China is always, the climate change is one of the always the key components of the cooperation between China and Africa. And you may remember when the FOCAC was held in Senegal, in 2021, there is a joint declaration for China-Africa cooperation on climate change. So this is the first one of a single country with the whole continent focusing on climate change. As I mentioned, we have established 2 funds which is focusing on dealing with the climate change in this continent. The first one is the South-South Cooperation Fund for Climate Change. This particular fund for climate change. This was established in 2015 with the starting fund donated by China over it's about 20 billion RMB, equivalent to $3 billion US. The second fund is Global Development and South-South Cooperation Fund. This is focusing majorly on the development issues, of course, including green development. The total fund of that is about $4 billion US by China. And also, China has a lot of national financial institutes to give support for the climate change issues. Like you may notice, the Sulong Asoki, the power plant here, it was funded by Chinese government, China-Africa Cooperation Fund, actually. It's one of the largest power plants in this country. So once we are focused on that, we will, deliver it. And you can always rely on China for those kind of things. Of course, China is not that very, affluent. The fund itself is not that big, and itself certainly cannot meet the demands of the whole Africa country. As I also said, our partner said, there are other countries in the world. They should also show their responsibilities. You may notice that the climate issue is not today's issue. It is an issue accumulated centuries of time. Who is the biggest contributor to the carbon emission? The developed countries, for sure, that's for sure. So I mean, in the Paris Agreement, there is an agreement, United Nations framework on Convention of Climate Change. We have the same responsibilities, but it's differentiated. We have common but differentiated responsibilities. The developed countries should, devote, like the arguments are great, like $100 billion yearly. I don't know whether those funds come to the desk. I doubt about it. So actually, here I want to take this chance to ask all the countries, participants, we should take our own responsibilities to deal with the climate change issues. Right now, there is a tendency in some countries that okay, it's not an issue, it is just a problem by some scholars and professors. There's no climate change issue at all. So now we are open for drilling more oil. We are not supporting new EV industries. So I mean, China is determined in our course. Right now we are shifting to green transition in an unprecedented pace. If you go to China, you go to visit China's cities, you can see over 40% of the cars running in cities are EVs. So it's we will do what we can do. So once we are written in the FOCAC action plans, we will deliver those, in due course. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you for that insightful piece. And for me, what stood out is that it's Your Excellency's call for all countries to take our own responsibility, take matters into our hands to address climate change. And so on the back of that, this is also about as the head of Climate Change and Sustainability Office at the Bank of Ghana, how does the central bank view climate finance as part of Ghana's broader financial stability and development agenda?
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, the core mandate of the Bank of Ghana is promoting and maintaining financial stability. Climate change has a high tendency to negatively impact financial institutions and affect this overall mandate of the central bank. That's ensuring financial stability. Now, yes, an emerging risk. Climate change has a tendency to also aggravate already traditional risks that banks are facing. So, the Bank of Ghana has developed frameworks to ensure that we are proactive and we are not taken by surprise. Our national system is resilient and solid. This led to the launch of the Sustainable Banking Principles in 2019 for banks to ably address sustainability issues that come from mega trends of the world. We also launched the climate-related financial directive, financial risk directive last year. This is to ensure that banks also respond appropriately in anything that has the effects of negatively affecting the financial sector. We campaign to ensure that it is quickly brought to a halt. So this is what the Bank of Ghana has done. We are continuing with our in training sessions of financial institutions to ensure that we are where we can handle this risk and it hits us.
Thank you so much, Madam Elizabeth. Thank you for that. And I am still, the banks are here, so you can testify that the launch of the SDPs in 2019, and then just lastly, like Madam you mentioned, the climate-related financial risk directive. So on you, Madam, in your opinion, or from your position as a supervisor in banking at the Mother Bank, I like to call the Bank of Ghana the Mother Bank. What progress has been made in encouraging banks and financial institutions in Ghana to integrate green finance principles into their operations and especially their lending practices?
Thank you so much. So as I just indicated, we launched the Sustainable Banking Principles in 2019, and then the climate-related financial directive last year. This is a big when it comes to sustainability and its change. Now, since we did this, we have seen that from 2021, for the second principle, it's basically says to promote environmental and social governance within an institution. So institutions try, because we need to report to the Bank of Ghana every 6 months. They try to within their own institutions, come up with low carbon systems like we try to do look about sustainable or sustainability sustainable things in their institutions. So we want to see a situation where if you are using say generator, you are using you are drawing from the national grid as from as possible. You now want to use solar, you now want to use LED lights, you want to use water. If you are using water, how do we conserve the water we use to ensure that we will not wasting water in the surface principles? We see a gradual dip in compliance with this. Now, principle number 6.
I would say that I represent business on the platform if I could. So at the China Europe International Business School, our students are we provide executive education, and so we engage managers and leaders on how to, if you will, turn challenges into opportunities and so forth, and see a number of our alumni here as well. And so from that perspective, when you engage business people, the question then is, where are the opportunities in these challenges? In fact, the definition for entrepreneurship that is accepted by academics and industry as well is from Howard Stevenson, a Harvard professor, and he says that entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard to the resources that you control. This means that entrepreneurs and program developers have to then align themselves with the funding sources that are available to support the innovations and the ideas that they have. So I think climate finance then starts to orient innovators and entrepreneurs and program developers to pursue opportunities within that space. And I think broadly, there are a lot of experts here. We know that when it comes to climate change, the opportunities we're looking at resilience, adaptation, mitigation. We also saw the irregular rains from the last few years. If you're a farmer, the number one question is, when do you plant, right? For a country that is a net importer of food, if you can't continue to rely on nature for agriculture, right? So then this becomes an opportunity to then look at water efficient irrigation systems that meeting this gentleman from a project from South Africa who said, "I've been to Ghana so many times, I still don't understand why you have a lake or a river that goes through from the north to the south and you don't have large-scale irrigation systems." I don't get it, and the connection here, of course, to climate change and also green infrastructure is how we use solar systems to then power these irrigation systems, if along the water also, so forth. And then also for mitigation, a lot of the analysts will say, and I think Ambassador also alluded to the point that, we're not the biggest polluters, right? So we're not, in many ways, you can say that we're not responsible for climate change, but the fact is that there are opportunities in mitigation as well, especially if you can tie them to the carbon market. There are projects on afforestation or reforestation. Imagine if we could find pollution-resistant trees or crops that we can use to reclaim some of the areas that have been devastated by climate change. Let's imagine that, right? Green projects that we can tie to carbon. A lot of developed countries have a problem meeting their carbon targets, so we can develop a lot of opportunities to develop projects to then feed to the carbon market. But I think the challenge always is that we can talk to innovators and entrepreneurs and ask them about these funds and the requirements. Number one, we've never heard of the funds. Number two, we have no idea what the requirements are. So I think there's a big gap there. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of smart, bright people. And I'm not only talking about startups, I'm also talking about program developers, large program developers who have trouble connecting the dots between the opportunities and the resources that exist.
Thank you so much, Professor. The African citizens, that many African countries, Your Excellency, including Ghana, continue to face challenges in mobilizing climate finance because sometimes we are not aware or we do not even know what is up the sleeve. So, sir, how is China supporting its African partners in bridging this financing gap? And how does that align with national priorities?
To understand, I answer the first question I mentioned a bit about. China has to our best for providing fund. We have established 2 funds solely by China, which runs 30 billion, 40 billion US dollars. And we've done it. Of course, on bilateral relations, we also try to offer our financial assistance to particular projects. We have built up or sponsored to build many new energy plants, factories across the continent. And I'll give you an example. We built a big wind power plant that Ama, which is in South Africa. It serves 300,000 households for the local people. We also built the largest solar power plant in Kenya with Chinese government funded projects. We also had to build in Egypt, one of the largest solar power plants in the whole world. It reduces the mixture of Egyptian energy sections. We also had to build a big power plant in Morocco. Those projects actually are discussed among the 2 countries and why we helped to build. And of course, there are a lot of you build, you line, you get the profits. So it depends on the financial discussions. So generally, I understand China is willing as our best, to help African. If you have a demand, so okay, let's talk. And whether we can do it or not. So we try our best to do that. But I know there's huge demand in Africa for financial support in dealing with the climate issues, as I mentioned, in all countries. And if I am an African country, and I may say, okay, in my government budget, I have a certain amount of money particularly for climate change issues. Normally this kind of things is public goods. No private companies is willing to do that. The government should be the major player in doing this. Otherwise, like if I'm a private citizen, I'm a billionaire. How come, I am, investing huge sum of money in, building climate, friendly companies? As long as I can live abroad very comfortably. So I don't care. So the government should play a more positive role in capping this financial gap and reducing this financial gap. So we are determined, on the way to the green transition. So and also, it's dealing with the green transition. It's not only for the new energy. There's huge challenge in African countries for the desertation, the deforestation. The big Sahara is in African continent. It's a big challenge. And we have the same problem in China too. But what we did, we have a long-term policy for forestation. If you go to China, you visit some deserts. We turned the fourth largest desert in China into green land in the past 40 years. We never stopped when we plant trees, we invent new methods. If any of you guys interested in, you can visit the desert in Ningxia, in Inner Mongolia, how the local people deal with the desertation. We have another miracle this year. The second largest desert in China, the desert in Xinjiang. We circled the whole desert. The desert is about it's about 330 million square kilometers. Large. This is large. And by the years of hard working, we circle this desert with greens, with trees. So it helps. So in this way, I understand. If there is a way in your country, you can find solutions to deal with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I like the way that Ambassador clearly articulates how much China is given to support and also help consistently lets us know that you have a part to play. We as Ghanaians, we as Africans have a part to play, and it's about time we take up the responsibility and the mantle. Talking about Africa and Ghanaian, the young people are the majority population, and they're about to be young people because according to UN definition, youth normally ranges from a certain age. So if you combine those younger than youth and then youth, especially for Ghana, you are having over 67% of the population being youth and young people. And so maybe let us talk about the youth, the young people, and how or whether we are being included in climate finance or not. Maybe from your experience, I know you've done a lot of work, Gaio is leading the charge to an extent, but from your experience, do you think, one, that young people and youth are being meaningfully included in climate finance decision making? If the answer is a no, what do you think are the key barriers or the biggest barriers preventing youth organizations and youth innovations from accessing these finance to begin with? Hello, looks like we're going to speak. Alright, yes, I will tell you exactly. Alright, thank you very much for the question. I would want to, first of all, start answering the question with acknowledging all the youth with beautiful ideas and the fact that they are not sitting
initiatives for them. They are actually taking the bull by the horn and they are taking charge of the issue of climate change. And I think I would want to appreciate all the young innovators in this room. Please, I would like you to give yourself a round of applause. Some young people are in this room and they are being innovative. They are being innovative like turning plastics to chairs. Some people like Macintosh. Some people are turning glass rings into concrete binders. As Green African Youth Organization, we are turning organic waste into compost and amongst others. And that is something that they must be commended for, and this is something that has to be invested in. But unfortunately, these young people are not being involved or included or are not being given the opportunity to have access to finances to improve upon this initiative that they are working on. And this is very disheartening. Some of the major problems or barriers that I can talk about is access to funding. They do not have access to funding. They are funding. People have the money sitting in their coffers and all that. But the fact that people go to them, all the organizations, all the institutions that go to them are young people, or we see people, and they are younger people. I'm sure when I got into there, people were like, oh, who is this thing? And why is she just like this? I'm a young person. How I am looking, how I am here, shouldn't be the lion, or shouldn't be what you look at to judge me, or to make a decision on what I have to say to you. Look at what I have to tell you. Does it have potential? Does it have a future? Does my initiative have a weight that when you find me, I'm going to be able to make a change? You're going to get a good results. So these are some of the, that is one thing. Also, I would say they don't have a voice. Their voices are not represented. Most times, young institutions or organizations are invited to some maybe conferences, workshops. They are just invited there because people will say, okay, you are making a decision for the youth, why are the youth not there? But the fact is when they leave the place, whatever they have discussed, or whatever opinion they have shared, those things are not being taken to the policymakers. They are not taken to the tables for it to be discussed. They are just in the room because they have to be in the room. And that is so disheartening. And also, one thing I can also talk about is bureaucracy. It is terrible. It is terrible when it comes to young people and they trying to get into government offices, financial offices, and amongst others to get funding. And even not even to talk just here in Ghana or in Africa. Even to get external funding is very terrible. Just imagine some young individual who has left school. Let me use Gary as an example. And our organization was founded by two young, passionate students. That's got their first funding from the teachers to register the organization. It took them 3 years to get funding. And this funding came from some organization was not even buying or working along the lines. They just saw the vision. They were like, okay, let me just support you. And they gave them $2,000. $2,000 was nothing. But because of the love, passion, and everything that has happened, this is where the Bio has won £1 million from the Action Plan that was last year awarded by Charles and This is something that we have to look at. The bureaucracy is too much. Somebody who started an innovation or somebody like somebody who started something in a year, and you're asking the person to give you documentation for 3 years, give you a bank statement that shows that you've gotten about $500,000 before. How are they going to get this? How will they be able to get this? Indirectly, they're trying to tell them that they're not fit for it. They don't have to come for their funding. And this is very terrible. If you keep doing this, this is something that the youth are going to go back and call into their share and share because they're going to say, whatever I do, no matter what I do, I'm not going to get the funding. So with all my ideas, I'll go back into my room or just find some office and work and get at the end of the day, they get like 2,000 or 3,000 and take them to my family. The last one that I would want to talk about before I anything is that we the young people do not have the skills. We do not have the skills. We have the passion, we have the ideas, but also we experience, like making sure that whatever we are doing it well. To make sure that when the father sees what we are doing, we say, okay, this is actually a good thing that we are doing. So I think we all have a part to play, fathers have a part to play, and also we also have a part to play. Before we go to our fathers, we should make sure that whatever idea we're having is very practical. We go there and we ask this question, we don't among the bush, go straight to the points, and then let them know that we are on top of our games. Our parents should because thank you, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Maybe I'll just say all of it. Okay. Young people should not be clapping like you are not young people. Please. Now that is the least clapping. I think the older people should not clap for the young people because it's not better. Thank you guys, thank you everyone, respectfully thank you everyone in the room, and thank you Mabel. You mentioned bureaucracy, the seeming lack of acknowledgement, more like why is this young lady or man standing in front of you talking about this idea, and then also the fact that truthfully some indeed do not even have the skills to comprehend or justify what they are saying. So it's a two-way sword. Settle that His Excellency's admonishments that we all have to take responsibility. So you identify where you are falling short, you fit it in, and then we continue to move the discussions. But then I will not close the chapter on what challenges and barriers are there. I will go back to you, Professor Gordon, Kwesi Adonza, because I know, and you mentioned that you have worked closely with entrepreneurs in the private sector, with innovators. Say, what else? What other barriers have come to your notice in your experience, in your practice? Is it the bureaucracy, lack of acknowledgement or skills, or are there even bigger challenges that you think may be hindering access to climate finance?
How to support innovators and young people to sort of bridge that gap. So I think as Ambassador said as well, a lot of these projects are also really big projects, and one of the challenges definitely is what we call this continuity, right? So one government starts a project, and then another one continues, and by the time they pick it up and start working on it, a lot of time has passed, and so I think that also impacts the way these projects are then cascaded down all the way to the different stakeholders that can be engaged in. And then also, I think we have a general problem of, and this is from my personal experience also, trying to work between or with multiple ministries, for instance, right? It's surprising how the extent to which ministries are working together. And you can understand that they all get different funding sources, they all share the funding, the mandates are different and so forth. So I think it makes it really difficult because a lot of innovators and entrepreneurs will need to sort of connect across sectors, if you will. If you're doing a green project, it has transportation impact, it has, you need to engage, MS and so forth. So that also is a challenge, from that perspective. You can have all the policies, but if they're not connected across the different ministries and agencies that will help deliver it, it becomes really difficult. And I think also, the seeds, we have the mother organization is in China. We are the Africa campus, and it's a joint collaboration between the European Union and the Chinese government. About 30 years, so we have about 30,000 plus alumni. And remember, this is executive education, right? So a lot of the alumni are executives in almost every industry in China and also in many parts of the world. And when they come down for us to help them assess investment opportunities, these are some of the issues that come up. Just a lack of understanding of how and where to sort of navigate the system. Also, payback periods. We had one recently who is a solar panel entrepreneur and wants to set up a factory here. It was really difficult to understand the payback periods and how to even sort of model it into a spreadsheet, right? What intermediaries to put in there, who's already financing. I was surprised to see this many banks here because when we did the initial research, I think it was only CBG that came up. We didn't find a lot of, financial opportunities from the banks. So I think that somehow we need to find a way of connecting the dots, if you will, in the system. I think there's too much fragmentation across even the funders and neighboring institutions and so forth. And so, young people are going to have it hard, right? Because even at the top is very fragmented. So hopefully the policies are aligned better and we can see clearly how to connect the opportunities to the family.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for the addition. So it goes to say that young people, your concerns are justified. Professor saw it with the executive team as well. Madam also talking about fragmentation across various sectors, ministries. I am just here and I'm wondering, Madam, in your view, how can Ghana ensure that climate finance, when mobilized, because His Excellency announced 2 separate funds worth totaling $7 billion USD when you combine both. So how, in your view, Madam, can Ghana ensure that climate finance, mobilized through the banking and financial sector especially, is better aligned with national priorities rather than the current fragmented or donor-driven interventions that we see, that the professor just agreed that is what the executives are saying.
So, thank you so much. So, I want to say that we don't work in silos. I mean, if you look at the green finance taxonomy that is being developed by the Ministry of Finance, this was launched last year. We brought together very key stakeholders, Bank of Ghana, NIC, SEC, other key leaders to draw up this taxonomy. We have a steering committee that is being led by the Bank of Ghana that is developing a sustainable financial law. We want this to be credible, to be stable and predictive, a framework that would ensure sustainable finance. This is between the financial sector, the Bank of Ghana, SEC, NPRA, and NIC. We have academia also coming on board as the Institute of Public Accountants Ghana, and then we have the Chartered Institute of Finance.
underlying interventions in the private finance sector. But, Madam, I didn't take the microphone because I'm coming back to you. As we are talking about the financial architecture that you have, your outfit, in collaboration with stakeholders, has set up to ensure that some of these barriers to private finances are addressed. I want to ask, and I believe our Chinese startup counterparts, Chinese corporations, businesses here would also be interested in this, that looking at Ghana-China cooperation, where do you see opportunities and the current architecture that we have in Ghana? Where do you see opportunities for Chinese financial institutions, investors, or green finance frameworks to complement Ghana's domestic efforts in building a sustainable financial system?
Thank you very much once again. So, we work on the Chinese ambassador in the government on the People's Republic of China, the China Forum, the help so far they have given us. But we believe there is more that we can do. I just mentioned the regional strategy that has been launched by the Ministry of Finance last year. So this includes business classification projects, new finance projects that one can invest in. And we want Chinese companies to come to Ghana to invest in some of these projects. China is unparalleled. I mean, when it comes to electric vehicles, when it comes to solar paneling or solar energy. So I think if China can boast of being, there when it comes to solar energy, we don't have an excuse. Chinese companies can come in and then support us technologically, financially, to ensure that we build solar systems to reduce our dependence on the national grid. Again, Chinese companies can also support the financial institutions that are giving us concessional loans that we can on-lend to the startups and the businesses that are coming up that needs our support. Chinese can do that. I think the MasterCard Foundation did a similar program. They have this for women, the disabled, and so the Chinese government also can give them support. Aside that, there can be knowledge transfer between Ghana and then China. Universities can exchange programs, central banks can exchange programs. I think when our lady representing the youth was here, they said there is a gap there, knowledge gap, to get to a level that we think we can say we are there. China has it all, especially this new economic order, world order. I think we are the leaders in most of these issues. So please come in and then support us.
Of course, the honesty in admitting that there is also in some cases capacity gaps. I'm just wondering, now that we are talking Ghana-China finance, and you've heard of all that is being done and that will be done to ensure that climate finance flows and flows well between Ghana and China. I'm just wondering, where do you see opportunities now? After addressing the challenges, where do you see opportunities for young people and youth organizations in playing a role within this partnership that's cemented by this summit, especially in areas like renewable energy, where China is leading, in green jobs or in technology exchange to at least meet the capacity gap?
Thank you very much. So I know that amidst every problem, there is an opportunity that you can exploit as a young person. So I think what I was already mentioned the first one, that is exchange of knowledge. When it comes to the skills aspects, I think when China, in Africa, went to Ghana, let me bring it down to Ghana, when there is some sort of program that is designed that will equip the young people to upskill, that
issues and all that, but I think it's the ideas are there. But to materialize this is a problem. I know China is doing a lot of things around us, so what if there's a program and then these people are actually pushed out, taken to China, or even if they're not taken to China, here in Ghana, China is not they are taking through the process, their thoughts, and how to materialize their ideas. They are going to come out as successful people, and then they are going to create jobs. That is where the jobs comes in. Because one thing I know about the group is because of passion, they have the idea, they try to move people in. They don't want to go alone, they want to go together because they are hungry for success. And we know that success does not come in silos. They have to work in groups. Another thing that we can also look at is maybe the government of Ghana also creating a financial window for the young people, like creating a fund or let's look at Ghana Climate Fund. Let's look at something like that. So when you look good, young people will have the opportunity to apply to some things like this. I know Ghana has get a lot of funds from the GCF, and amongst others. These funds that come to them, some of them can be set aside for the young people to build up their initiatives. And that would be more like a startup for them, because when they are going to solicit for external fundings, they are asked to bring financial reports. If I don't have a financial report, I will not be able to solicit for the fund. So trust funds like this or things like this, when they are put in place, it will be more like a stepping stone for the young people to get more funding from other people. So we can look at that. Also, we can look at exchange of knowledge. Ghana here, we have a lot of potential, we have a lot of knowledge that we as Ghanaians can also share with China. They don't always have to come to us. We also have brilliant people, good people. Recently, I was in a school in Ontario, youth school engagement. I have this project called the HSC. Young students in the JHS schools are doing motivated testings. Young people, children at I think they are like 14, 15 years are doing motivated things that show you segregate your waste. When you get processed, this is for plastic, this is for organic, that kind of thing. We have a lot of ideas. So we should also think about that, not always looking at getting or always receiving. We shouldn't always have a receiving end. We should also try to be at the giving end, and that's when people are going to take it seriously with our initiatives and ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Miguel.
Our success, and then be able to make recommendations about how industry here can then start to take the right steps towards achieving some of those successes as well. There's a lot of opportunity for tracking efforts that industry is making in this space. We have talked about reporting as understanding how the banks have been reporting on climate. At Seeds Africa, for instance, at Seeds Shanghai, there is an institute that is focused on tracking ESGs of Chinese companies. So again, through that reporting, they are able to understand where the investments are, where the gaps are, and so that's another opportunity for academia to sort of understand who is connecting with this taxonomy, for instance. Which areas are the banks funding? What are they learning from the different funding and the different projects? These kinds of exercises create lessons learned and allow for the different stakeholders to know where the pitfalls are and also what success you can leverage for the work that they do. So I think broadly is the question of how academia plays that role in that capabilities by connecting with policy, connecting with industry, and making sure that it's supporting the overall development of the space.
The government's communications. Ghanaian governments want to do on these kind of issues. Ghanaian government can talk with Chinese counterparts. We have one particular administration called Environment and Ecology Department, which is focusing on issue on environmental protection. So I think the development can do. The second one is the policymakers engage with citizen leaders. You have 24 economy, and since it's coming to be this July, myself, and together with Chinese community, both here and in China, we have organized several seminars with policymakers to 24 economy. They're focusing on a lot of issues. Of course, one of the issues for the green and sustainable development. A lot of Chinese, this is very interesting. The third one is, of course, we need to find partners. So business to contact with the business companies. I know, many Chinese companies are willing to cooperate with Ghanaian business. They have a local competitor, so it's easier for them to do business in Ghana. We have a lot of regulations, rules, and we employ local people. So it's very easy. It's not that complicated. And then another thing is China is willing to share the technology and talents with Ghanaian, especially Ghanaian youth. We offer a lot of training programs for African youth, not only in Ghana. I can give you the number. In the FOCAC summit, we come out with the next 3 years, will be over 60,000 training opportunities by China to African countries. Until now, many Ghanaians have, take advantage of those kind of programs. So I think it's beyond the way. It's not that too far we cannot do it, and it's easy. I know, as we too, stick to the one goal, and we work to the same direction. We can achieve those kind of progress. Thank you.
They should move to something. And that was the best of their 3 bodies. And that is why in China, the young ones now do know what to do. Now, if you listen carefully to the ambassador, he kept saying something, but he is a diplomat that I was, very, very liberal of his words. All of you here, most are Christians. What is Matthew chapter 7, verse 7? Ask. Ask China and we'll get it. Tuesday, I was back in China as the deputy ambassador, former president before this. When the delegation was coming, they insisted on getting a new way for Ghana. I was an officer in charge. They asked me. I sent a reply. I said, look, the Chinese are not very much interested in doing new lands in Africa. Because the Chinese one in Zambia was a disaster. He said they are interested in hydro. Ghana went back, looked, and they said yes. We had an attempted hydro dam that was, the feasibility were done by a Canadian firm. So the government at the time decided, why don't we go and talk of hydro? They did, and the result is Ouija. They go, ask, it shall be given. So the problem we are having it is, unfortunately, the politicians are not here. Because the minister couldn't have been here. My colleague, the ambassador, said, the company have to get the budget. I want to do this, I want to do this. I don't have enough money. Can you subsidize? Can you help? And the Chinese never say no. We say yes. Madam Bank, I'm only just supporting you. Ask the Chinese. Ask even the Chinese Bank of Ghana. Go and visit them and ask of them. That will have a very huge impact. How can we conserve energy in that way? We can't do it. Ask. I shall be giving it to you. My last comment is about education. I've think that in Ghana, we think that education is just going to position in the classroom. And I think that's not the case. We lack information, we don't read, we only want to look at TikTok. Interestingly, unfortunately, the first two are boys, the last two are girls. The two girls are compelled them to go to China and study. They have masters. And I listen to them when they are talking. My second boy, he takes TikTok and then social media. He looks at the things that he can laugh and roll on the floor. 3 days ago,